2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 and 20, 21 and 22 and 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, counting, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 24, 25, 36, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 1, 52, 2, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, and 56, 60, 60, 60, 60, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 5, 86, 87, 88, 89, 89, 89. 89 years, 89 fingers. Counting. I'm wearing my mother's gloves. This is a story, and welcome to it, of me and my mom. Me, an only child, whose dad died when I was a kid. So my mother and I had a special relationship. It could be loving, and it could be also like this. But for this one, it's about, okay, this doesn't like my gloves. All right. Okay. This is Hazel, born in 1908 in Rutland. And Hazel was a counter. She counted, I'll move along here. She counted rosaries. Let's see if I can find it. Yes. When she passed away, my mother left stuff. And a rosary is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decades of Hail Marys, Our Fathers, Glory Bees. And the whole point, which she would do at nighttime, is you hold an intention. Maybe you want good things for somebody or yourself or health or whatever. But the idea is that maybe after doing these in repetition, you will get an answer. And that's one of her countings. She also left this hat box, I guess, and it had over 100 of her hankies, which I've been using as a way for me and my mom to speak to each other, because when I was a kid, I went to Catholic school, And here is the uniform. I actually made this over again and put the patch on the pocket that showed the symbol of the Sisters of Charity was suffering. It was the pelican in its nest with 3 babies, and the pelican is poking itself and feeding her blood to the babies. So in that pocket, and here's many more hankies still left, in that pocket is nostalgia, the hanky that is way down at the end. It's the second from the bottom at the end, and it turns out it's a Vermont hanky. One of those hankies back in the 50s or early 60s where, it had a map of Vermont, and I put my head over Rutland. And that was the one I put for the photo here, but we were allowed a little bit of color in our Catholic school uniform. Otherwise, it was pretty bleak, and I took my mom's hankies. Of the 100, these are because it is her lifespan. And it's another not needed, really. You can see the work without knowing about this is a tribute to her. But it is. One of the things about counting, there were other things that we counted. My mother left this wonderful suede purse, and inside were gloves. And I used her ball gown glove, which is kid skin, on that back pedestal. It's called the Prisoner, and there was only one glove, and my mom had actually cut the fingers off of it. And I thought, well, I will just keep cutting it, I guess. And if I recall correctly, at night, her hands were so dry that she put Vaseline all over them, but still wanted the use of her fingers, went to bed with the kid skin gloves, and it just looked so forlorn that I called it the Prisoner. My mother walked the 14 stations of the cross with an intention. My mother had a devotion to Saint, at the time it was Blessed, Martin de Porres, an African-American priest in South America who served the poor, I believe, in the 1800s. Again, hoping that through the novena that she said to Saint Martin, novum being the Latin for 9, it's a set of prayers you repeat, and it can be 9 prayers for 9 days, or 9 prayers for 9 months, whatever. Your 9 you can pick. You're hoping always to get an answer. So I'm trying to get an answer, I think, to what am I doing on this planet? Why am I here? Why do we have to die like my mom did, and I will, but not today, as Charlie Brown's dog said, right? Let's see if I have more things to say. I think I do. I guess how this project began, it started off with, after my mom died, in 2009, I started taking pictures of myself in the bathroom mirror for 89 days, just asking myself, how am I feeling today? And in this one, I was tired, and it was day 9. This was lipstick. I wiped it off afterwards. And I kind of mimicked the feeling. And then I had a show of them adhered, mounted to mirror plexiglass, so that this is my shower in the background. You're seeing what I saw. And after I did this, I took the photos and reduced them very small and took out the hankies. That's when I had the idea. And I opened them up, the hankies, and I taped them to printer paper, a laser printer. And then I ran them through my HP desktop printer. And some of these, like this one, oh, it's called Groggy. It bounced, and a second image appeared. And I loved it, and I enhanced it before I got to any of the beading. Some of the fabric, like this linen, was so crisp that the image was sharp. Others, the images kind of blended in with this H for hazel. And sometimes they didn't look like anything much. There's a face that was shaky, feeling shaky. Some of these are just plain funny. Feeling tired, that's the same one as this. It's hard to believe. I out the head and I flopped the image in Photoshop, or the lettering, so that it's correct. And let's see, drained. I literally took a piece of the hanky and had it coming out of my mouth. Let's see. I was feeling dull this day, and it's like all splotchy. That was perfect. I felt doubtful. I felt pumped up. I've had a couple days when I was nervous. There was not days when I didn't have a feeling for every day. Sometimes they repeated, because I was trying to be honest. I felt lonely, and they were just ghosts. This is Hazel. Of course, her name was on this hanky. I didn't put it there. But I embroidered all of them with the day and the feeling. And let's see, this one, I just felt so sad that I just dragged it out. This hanky only had these two gray-black appliques on it. And my mother told me that this was a training hanky for girls who were going to be taught how to do their own fancy work, it was called, appliques. So that was just all it was. And that was the reason why it was, because I was saying, why would anybody just do two little gray blobs? But there was a whole, when you were a young girl and people had no idea what to get you for Christmas or your birthday, you got hankies. And I'm talking about the 50s and 60s. They would come in a little box, thin. I have the box still from Megram's, or maybe it was Abernathy's on Church Street in Burlington. And it came with 3 hankies and a little bow. I should jump to the fellows on the wall. Before I do, though, I wanted to talk about feelings and thoughts, because this is all about my feelings. I decided, I had heard about a good philosophy course, so I took it, 101, at UVM in my freshman or sophomore year. And one of the things, I had my brick wall of Catholicism that I was walking around with through UVM. And there was a class, or a part of the class was on René Descartes, who was a mathematician and a philosopher in the 15 or 1600s. And he stated, I think, therefore I am, cogito ergo sum. And it hit me so hard. Nobody else seemed to mind. I sat there and I said to myself, that's it. That's who I am, my thoughts. And I remembered what the catechism said who I was. Something like this. I may have some of the words wrong, but in the Catholic catechism, the Baltimore catechism, there's a question, and you had to memorize these. And the answer is, who am I? And the answer was, I am a child of God, made in his image and likeness. I still remember this. To love and serve him in this world and to be happy with him in the next. No mention of thoughts. And after a while, I realized, I'm neither. I am sensio ergo sum. I feel, therefore I am. That's how I know who I am, my feelings. And they change. After each of those, looking in the mirror, 10 minutes later, I had a different feeling. So it's not one thing. It's fluctuating. And that's when, at that time, I did all these, also 89 portraits based on those, but based on the feelings. So those are representations of my feeling based on those photographs, doing the same kind of gesture. So we've talked about feelings and counting and my mom and what am I doing here in this world as I age. So I'm going to just continue with other things that, I'll finish a little bit with what I've done and then we can talk maybe. Okay, so I took one of them, day 32, feeling groggy, which is 32. It's a little green one. All right, so there's 30 up above, so 31, 32. Oh, I already talked about this one. That one, I'm holding my eye open, and in this picture, this is the, that was my portrait of feeling groggy, that was me on that day on paper. And I've got here the hanky and the close-up of it. So I took one. All of them are based on the same idea. So when this banged through my printer, it bounced over this already there little embroidery and made a smudge. And my teeth were blacked out, so I added some little devil teeth. And so there we go. But I have used, not always, I had a show here called A Year of Forgetting in which they were straight paintings, but they were also calendars counting the days of each month and all my forgettings. So here I am back in the Hand-to-Hand project at the Atlanta Contemporary Arts Center. There, I started with those archivist gloves, and I stuffed them, and I knew on day one of the Iraq War, I knew it, that this was not going to end, or not end pretty. And I took this is not that first day, but this is Condi Rice on 1605. Remember, it started March 2003. I took a headline from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and I did a little image, painted the stuffed glove. So she is telling Condi Rice in Iraq urges Sunni role in Constitution. I tried not to make any comment on pro or con, and I just wanted it to be pure, I guess. Later on, after this was the 2003 to 2005. You're not seeing all of it, but it took up a lot of space, and I had the opening was actually a closing, and I announced to people that was it. Every day I was doing a painting, and I said, I can't do this anymore. And a woman there, a friend of mine, she said, you can't stop, it's going on. And she said, I'll do the next week. And then she got a bunch of people. And after the whole thing was done, my last show, it went all across the country in various venues, and at it ended at the Chaffee in Rutland. Every room in that castle had it. I stopped in 2010 when Obama said, we're taking all our troops out, except advisors or something. But I said, this is it. I was not doing them at this point. I was coordinating, but for example, many of the people said, I don't want to do gloves, but I'll do gloves my way. And this is Joe Perrigini, this is a still from a video animation. It was all ostensibly, this was 4/1/06. The Joyful Jitters, that was one of, everybody took a week. So his animation was all the days. We never did Sunday. And it was all about the happiness of the families when the soldiers came back. However, in the background was this drip, drip of blood coming through. On September 4th in '06, I just picked Amandine Drouet. She's an artist who lives in Atlanta now. And every day, she didn't have any comment except embroidery of the date. The length of these strings represented the number of people that had died that day, of our soldiers. So some were fairly short, some were medium, some were way down. It really, so we had artists from all over the country. There were 200 artworks and 2,000 artists. No, 2,000 artworks, because we're counting the gloves individually, and 200 artists from all over. And I decided at the end that I would not mail them back. I mean, some of these were big. Some of them were heavy glass and sculptural things. I loaded up my car and I decided I'm going to hand deliver them. And I did a blog that whole summer, meeting people, talking to them, photographing them, and I put it on Facebook. So it was a great experience and something that you really gets you close to the news. There was one person who was pro the war, many people actually, and we also had 7 young Iraqi teenagers who had come to America to get away from the war, and they did gloves. I was so happy to get people from there. And I forget what I was just about to say about, going around the country, doing the, I don't know. But it was good for me, and I returned all of them. Okay, right now what I'm doing, counting-wise, is I've been counting the Peachum snowfalls that are measurable. Every day that we have a snowfall, they have to be measurable, not this deep necessarily, but they can't be just flecks in the sky. They have to be at least on the ground for an hour, and then I post them on my feed, and also on there's a little group for the love of Peachum. People from Peachum that live in Florida now, they tell me, we checked what the snow is doing if we want to come up on your thing. So that's the school bus coming through. I'm here on my front steps. And this is downtown Peachum, believe it or not. That's what it looks like. One day, I hope to do a book. I don't know how to do it, but selection of some of the better ones. And here is another group of 2. This is my neighbor who saved my day. I had an Airbnb going on in my house, and we had a guest who came in from Franconia, New Hampshire late, and he told me he had to leave by 6 a.m. This is what? I don't know what day it is, but it's definitely December or something dark. And he said he had to get to Stowe and he needed to get to leave by 6. And so this fellow, Doug Jameson, who stays up till 2 or 3 on his computer, got up and did that for us. And I don't know if the guy even knew it. He came out at 6 and it was ready to go. And I said, you know, it's Sunday and it's still been snowing all night. Peachum does not really clear it out right away. And he went down that hill like this. And I said, I hope he got there. He gave me a good review. All right. So, and then I'll probably finish with this. This is there was a mention in the intro. I'm a community project director too. And, all right, what am I doing here? This is becoming a tree. And that's something I wish I could do. I really am into trees. But this is Deanne, who loves her tree. And I asked everyone, and the librarian who was reading to her tree, I was asking them, would they please do something, and we would have a show at there's a little gallery in the library. And would they do me the honor of you know, interacting with a favorite tree or one you hated. I don't care. You know, hate that tree. I don't care about having a sweet message. Just, what do you think? So I went to the school. Let's see, where are you, school? And these are 2 of the kids, the 2nd grade. Myrick and Colby, they were just trees. They loved it. And this little girl was scared, but she said she would be a tree. And her friend, Maya and Willoughby, she was the tree. So they gave me, I was supposed to talk to the class and have a talk with them for like a whole hour. And the teacher rushed in and said, you have 10 minutes. And we did it. It was longer than 10 minutes. But anyway. And then we have the senior apartments in town. And that he's not in the senior apartments. But I created this stump with a friend who has a tree business in Peachum, and a chair, and these are maple and I think, yeah, that are threaded in. This is Olive Cheney. At the time she was 100. She has since passed away. This was in 2017, I believe. And she passed away during the COVID, not because of COVID. But she wanted to be in on it. And I'll show you, it started with me taking photos of myself with a tree and then painting, doing a painting. They're very small, like, I don't know, printer paper, something. I think there are eight of them. And this is what the chair looked like, empty. And I asked people in the community, the librarian helped me, to send me photos of your favorite tree or you with trees, and it would be in my show. So those 8 photos and paintings that I started with are back there. People started adding, I added, of course, the ones I did, but their love of the trees. And they came in also to the library, and the librarian took pictures with her smartphone. And that's one of the paintings. Right amidst them, that's another one of the paintings. And anyway, I thought it was really successful. So it's another kind of counting piece. But I use counting as a scaffolding, really, for hanging my idea and counting. So I think I am done. Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
How do you put a handkerchief through a Sometimes mine just jams with just paper.
Yeah. Well, how did I do that? I really, I would, when I had a too big one, like this would be an easy one because there's no embroidery on the thing. Even this kind of stuff. But if the paper, which, was like that, I would just tape it really tight. I would iron it first so it was really stiff and tight. And then on the back, it would be taped. And I would have already played around with the little images on paper this size so I knew where I wanted it to be. And then I'd go to the computer and adjust where it should be. And then let it rip. And yeah, so this one would be easy too. And it's small, so I wouldn't even have much taping to do. It would be taped on the front, which is a lot easier. So I have all these left. But something like this one, I would have had to take off all of this. I did take it all off. There's a lot of stitchery there. And then sew it back on. That was one way. And then sometimes, as I said, it did jam. But really jammed completely. I was able to get them out. And I was lucky because that was an old HP printer, this was 2009. I did the printing in 2010 and did all the beading until 2020. Through whenever I had a quiet moment or friends over, I'd be doing my beading. And so what did that have to do with anything? 11 years. And it just...
Sustaining it for so long.
Yeah. Maura, Paul, and my cousin, no, she's your grandmother, yeah. I visit her often in Rutland, and I always have my hankies with me. Now I'm done. But how does that feel? I would do it everywhere, on Amtrak. I took Amtrak instead of the fancy Dartmouth bus because that bus stops for lights and shakes things, so I couldn't be threading my needle. And my life was thought about as far as my artwork. A lot of us artists do that, right? Right? We all, yeah. So I don't know if there was anything more that was amazing that I did about preparing it. I took the batting. A lot of people have asked me, why is your batting hanging out funny? I have this big pile of batting that I roll out, and I just put the hanky that's got the picture on it down flat, and then just cut quick around it, and whatever it looks like is what gets tucked in between and becomes the thickness that shows the depth of the needle. So like this one was pretty easy because it had no, embroidery on it. But for some reason, it just slowed down and pulled my face out. But that worked. It was sluggish. So I said, that was a stroke of luck, right? So, I don't know. This is the story of me and my mom, and I miss her. But maybe she's looking down, thinking about, well, those hankies finally got used. Yes.
I actually have two.
Good.
So you started in 2009. What was the difference between when your mom passed and when you started?
Oh, my mother passed away quite a time before that. She died in 1997.
And then were you very specific with your choices of the hankies, or was it random?
No, it wasn't random. Sometimes I had not much choice, but the ones that have the H, like for Hazel. There's a few of them. I tried to make it match. There's one that's, what was it? It was H for, no, I was going to say ready. I used the Girl Scout one on like being prepared. And what was your question again?
I was just wondering if they were randomly chosen or if you were...
I wanted a flatter surface because like some of the ones that I've mentioned, because the linen ones came out really sharp. This one is linen, and that came out really, I had to on this one paint first a base because that was not going to show up much on that dark hanky. So that worked too.
You got it placed in there perfectly.
Yeah, but I did all that with paper so that I knew ahead of time where I could tape it on the paper to match the test paper. So.
Did you say that, was it a laser printer that you used?
Yeah.
Okay. I know with transfers,
No.
it doesn't work with,
It doesn't. And I tried using those iron-ons at first, but I didn't like the quality. The iron-on, it was plastic and it sat up on the fabric. And these soaked in, and I liked that better. It wasn't so perfect or whatever, that sitting upright.
Did you iron over the image at all to set it, or? did you
What
not
I
need
did
to?
was, and I don't know if I said it, but I turned it over and I ironed back.
Yeah.
And I think that did the same thing. But people will say, thinking that it is laser printing, but I didn't go to somebody to have it somehow laser printed. It's just with a laser printer, so.
I have a question about the community projects.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a really ambitious thing to do as an artist. And I'm wondering, did you specifically raise money? Did you get grants
No.
for that, or you just did it?
I just did it, and I got the stump, people dragged that in. I got that chair from the dumpster. Someone had already trimmed their trees. I got those. The paint, our librarian liked the idea, and so she put it on the library's website.
That's what I was
And-
wondering about the
yeah.
marketing too.
Yeah, and she had a QR code that people could get more information. And the school, this is just before COVID, allowed me to go in, albeit quick, and there were lots of kids. These are just a couple. And I don't think I spent any money. I mean, these prints, were they? No, I did go. I spent money. I went to the Frame Dames. They have a big, shiny printer that they can. So I did go.
It seems like you got a lot of interest in it.
I
so
did,
That's
and-
great. I
Yeah.
feel like that would be like difficult to.
The
get into
Peachum
the message.
Library, Peachum has 500 or 720 in the summer, and they go to the library a lot. And I'm known in town, and people know my snow pictures, and when I said I was doing this, people jumped on it. So I was happy about that. And many of these people, some people are dead. This guy, and then Olive, and she's moved. She has moved, It's a slice of time as well. So, yep.
So the snow project, is that what you're working on now? Or
Yeah.
So that's your ongoing
That's
next
my
move?
ongoing, yeah.
Okay.
I've done 8 seasons of it, and I'd like this book to be I don't know how to do a book, and I just priced it with a guy who knows about books. Do you know about books? Oh my God. Okay. Because I really didn't want to do a blurb book. I wanted a little more beauty in the aloud, I would think. So
Yeah.
I will. Do we have emails?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's my next step.
Great.
Yeah.
Any other questions today?
So, at what point in time did your process become about counting? Or was that something that you did as a child? I mean, when did you recognize that counting was important to you?
Counting has been important since the beginning of my art. When I got my Master's of Fine Arts, I was doing a little of painting, a little of blah, blah, and I did a project. It was based on my mom, in a way. She was in a nursing home in Atlanta, and it was the Atlanta Olympics time, 1996, and I graduated. I did late getting my master's for me. I graduated in 97, just before she died. But in that nursing home, I decided to take a walk from my home to her nursing home. And on the way, I met, on purpose, artists who met at designated highlights of Atlanta. One of them was Oakland Cemetery. We met in Oakland Cemetery, where they were musicians and artists as well, and they played. Oakland would only allow us to play harp music, and we did. And then we stopped. I'm slowly getting to my mother's nursing home this whole way. We stopped at Sacred Heart Cathedral because there was a heart issue she had. We stopped at the Hospital for the Poor and Indigent. I met an artist there who is a fantastic quick sketcher, and we got permission as long as no names or the faces of babies were shown, but this was the neonatal unit, and the babies were could live or die. So death was in this mix. And did we do something with the Olympics? I think, it was during the Olympics. So there were lots of people around. And that was how I started. And somebody asked me at an artist talk, it showed we did a video. Remember, it was 96. I had to have help doing this video. And we did a video. I had all these people's artwork, the sketchers. It was in that round gallery again. And I was asked, I did two big paintings showing the map of the walk route, kind of like counting. And I realized in my talk, I said, this is probably about the rosary. That step by step thing, it's burned into my brain. Ooh. But it's meditative, and that's the reason, or that's the start of it. But I've had shows that weren't, but most of the ones that I've enjoyed the most have been about counting.
Counting and collecting too.
And collecting, yeah. And pulling people in, pull in.
So you did this over 11 years, and I'm curious how much, generally on average, one might take, one individual work might take.
Yeah, wow. I did it over such a period of time, Like if I had friends over, I would do a couple hours, and then it would sit. And then on that Amtrak train, I would get one or two done, But some of this is so intricate, you can't even see all the stitchery. I don't know. I think the best thing is to take 89 or 90 and divide it by 11. What is that? Get out your calculator. So if it's 90 divided by 11, if divided by 10, that would be what? 9? 9 a year? No.
Yeah,
Something like that.
Yeah.
9 a year.
Yeah.
So what else were you doing concurrently during those 11 years?
Okay, during that time,
Clearly, the portraits were happening.
they were happening, definitely.
What else was happening?
What else is happening? I was doing performance art in Atlanta, where I was living, and with a bunch of musicians, and they would accompany me. Here I go again, but I had a show of called Coffee Jesus. Every day I went down to this coffee shop and had coffee. And I saved that cup and I wrote the name of what the brew was. And for that show, that was going on, a different counting. And then we served coffee at the, and a bunch of pastries. But it was really scary to see that for, it was 4 years answering a call. A friend of mine said, I want to do a show called Index, which is what it was called. And all the artists had to follow something for 3 years, do something. And I said, right up my alley, you know? But it was scary for me to see 3 or 4 years of my coffee cups. I went, and they were, I put Christmas lights in them, and it was fun. They had a huge wall. I mean, really, it was long. But all the time I was with a lot of musicians, and they, you know, made it easy. You know, we would.
Are you a musician also?
No. Nope. But they'd always say, why don't you do a little performance? There was one guy that he was always interested in babies. I forget why. So we did a performance on babies. But I could go on and on.
Cool.
So somebody needs to do a brain scan. But I will say I don't think any of my intentions really got answered. You know, my mom or why I'm here or whatever. I just think my cousin today, Maureen, said what I said with the two of them on a dock, Charlie Brown and Snoopy. And Charlie Brown says, as he's looking out into the beautiful scenery on their feet are in the water, he says, you know, Snoopy, someday all of us are going to die. And Snoopy said, yes, but not today. And I think that's my motto.
Very good.
So.
Nice. Anyone else?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming.